Guys, running it back with another replay. Gonna be a another tournament showcase with Khorne here, played by me, and my opponent Ponebot, who's got the Dowie coming in here. Love seeing these guys. Khorne and Dowie have always been a fun matchup, and especially so with all of the new tools that each faction has got. Well, Khorne not so much new tools, but just improved options across the board. Bloodletters got some big buffs to leadership, and I mean, cheaper Khorne infantry across the board, Marauders and Khorne warriors alike. So that's really fun to see. Valkia gonna be here as the Lord option, and I've got just a huge line of infantry. I thought about bringing in some Marauder horsemen in my starting army, but I find them to be a little lackluster against factions that have strong ranged options, such as Empire and Dowie, Grand Cathay, stuff that has access to cannons, basically, that just cover entire swaths of the battlefield. I don't like having to micro my horsemen around that, so just going with the deeper infantry line instead. With some Hounds of the Blood Hunt as well, just to secure the objectives. These guys are a little bit harder to hit. They're a little lower to the ground, so they can kind of sit in this divot here and be a little bit safer from the cannon fire. So for the Dowie, it's going to be one cannon up here on this, moving up onto this little plateau, onto this hill. Very good option, very good choice. Gives it a good firing line. Some Bugman's Rangers out here on the side. These guys are very stalwart for a missile unit. They do come with Stalk, so I can't see them right now. But they also have a healing ability. As long as their leadership is not broken, then they're going to be healing passively in combat, making them kind of difficult to remove for stuff like Fleshhounds and Furies. Coming in with some solid melee defense and melee attack as well. So, interesting to see that choice. Dwarf Warrior line with Thorek, who's going to cast his runes as usual, and just be annoying here. Solid melee combatant, not too shabby to see him on the field. Another cannon is my opponent's first summon out, and then he's got a couple of thunderers here with some hammers. Forgot about these guys. Hammers sneaking around in the woods here. Interesting choice to see. They are incredibly potent against Khorne infantry of all types. The magical attacks gets through demon physical resist, obviously, as well as just smashing apart Chaos Warriors and the Marauders. So gotta really pay close attention and keep my guys away from that. They're not going to do too hot otherwise. I guess, no, this must have been in my opponent's starting build, because he's still got the points here. We'll see what he brings out first. I think I actually know what it is. Just to spoil it a little bit, I'm pretty sure it brings out some Doomseekers, which is a good option, really good option. They're a very strong unit now, and excellent against infantry-heavy faction like Khorne is, obviously. Hard-hitting anti-infantry removal piece. I'm going to bring out a Blood Shrine here. This thing is just so annoying and sticky. It's got Gore Feast, which gives it a passive heal in melee combat. It's got the buffs to your melee infantry. Good physical resistance, some spell resistance, makes it even more durable. And it's going to just go in and party in the back line is my plan. It is very vulnerable to cannons, however. So my opponent, if he can get some good shots in on this thing, it might not be too long for this world. So I jump out here, grab the points early, captured it with my hounds, who are hiding in the trees. They took a couple cannon shots, a few casualties. Gonna just keep them back here for a while until I find an opportunity to sneak through the front line. And yeah, here you go. The Doomseekers walking out onto the field, some fire coming in from the Bugman's Rangers to kickstart this battle. I do have a superiority advantage in terms of my infantry corps. As long as I can keep my opponent's most dangerous missiles offline, like these Thunderers, keep them from shooting down all of my units, then it's going to be a very good day for me. Blood Shrine, diving in on the Thunderers, just kind of dodging back and forth and soaking up the Rune of Slowness, allowing Valkia to fly over the top here. And hover around, you know, getting ready to cast a good Sloughnir if I see a nice opportunity for it. Big cannon shot coming in, though, on that Blood Shrine, taking a lot of damage on this thing already, which is not ideal, but the distraction it's caused has allowed my Bloodletters to slip through into the backline here, jumping right onto the Thunderers. Going to be a huge win for me as long as I can keep these guys supported and alive. So, using Valkia to fly over the top. A bit of a blunder on my part there with the Sloughnir, so I just popped Demon Shield to cancel the cast of Sloughnir. I'd much rather do that than suffer not getting this good cast off, which is really putting a lot of damage on the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, and gonna allow my Bloodletters to just mop these guys up in record time. Over here, Dwarf Warriors, not doing too hot, man. Bloodletters are an excellent tool for removing mid-tier infantry pieces now. Previously, their poor leadership made it hard for them to trade effectively into anything. They were okay trading upwards into super elite infantry, but he really fought against that as Khorne in a scenario where they were able to get into combat without getting mulched and having to watch them just dissipate before they can do anything. Now, though, not so much. Now they're very good at actually peeling through these kinds of units. And you can see a pretty big rout coming in on this left-hand side of my opponent's formation. One Dwarf Warrior already running, Warriors of Dragonfire Pass fleeing, tied up Slayer unit with some Bloodletters, another really good trade for me. And Valkia going in, baiting an attack on Thorek, but deciding to go after the Thunderers here, just to stop some of them from getting shots off, picking off individual models, and providing that steady incremental value over the course of the game. Marauders back here, chasing down these Dwarf Warriors who are trying to pull out and give some fire support, or just give some melee support to my opponent's units over here. The Grim Delvers, really good play by my opponent, bringing them out onto the field. Getting huge shots onto the flank of my Marauders, who really don't have any defense against those really heavy-hitting missile shotguns right there, man. Absolutely tearing into them. And not going to be long for this world. Huge blasting charge volley from the Ekron's Miners. Wrecks my Bloodletters, who are dead, but did trade very well into those Dwarf Warriors and the Slayer unit. Killing a few Thunderers, actually, I should say. Unfortunately, the second volley of the blasting charges hits more of the Slayers than it does my Bloodletters, nonetheless getting good damage on them. But you can see how quickly these guys are paying for themselves. Trading pretty evenly despite some pretty catastrophic losses in the early going there with the huge blasting charge volley on them. Very good situation for me. Valkia sticking and dodging, attacking the Ekron's Miners, while some Furies hovering over the battlefield. I was trying to decide where to send these fellas. There were Doomseekers over here that they were fighting. They got some pretty good damage on them, and I really need to do something about them. They've already killed one Bloodletter unit, and they're working on these Marauders here, although if there's any unit that you do want to send against Doomseekers, it's something with high melee attack, just to stop these guys up, do a little bit of damage, and provide buffering for more dedicated answers like Fleshhounds, who, while not having the greatest melee attack in the world, are a large target, so they aren't hit quite as easily by the huge attacks that these Doomseekers have. And getting rear charged and triple teamed, these guys are really getting torn apart right now. Fleshhounds have taken out the Bugman's Rangers. My opponent brought the Doomseekers out to support these Bugmans, but with the front line collapsing, he needed to reroute them and just stop up as many of my units as possible, which is paying off for him pretty well. I have compromised a lot of his missile units. I have killed off one Thunderer already. Back here, pretty much gone. It's rallied in the backfield there. And I'm just working on getting through the rest of my opponent's army. I've got a bit of a value lead, working down the Hammerers as well as some Bloodletters, and the Chaos Warriors here, who are doing alright with the Cultists supporting them. Pretty good engagement for me. I did lose the Blood Shrine, It just got shot up by the Thunderers and these cannons here, which are absolutely hammering me now. Valkia taking a lot of damage from those huge thunderous volleys. So really needing to get her out of here. I'm going to stick and hold as long as possible. Some friendly fire coming in there. Dowie don't love doing that to their friends, but that's how it is sometimes. With the battle devolving into the mess that it is at this point, I'm going to use these Hounds of the Blood Hunt to try and flank around my opponent's force. He really doesn't have much to contest these guys speed-wise. So, yeah, gonna get out here, jump in the woods, try and get on these Thunderers or a cannon crew. That's the goal here at least. And doing what I can just to be annoying. Another unit of Doomseekers comes out. Charges into the fray, saving the, well, trying to save the Hammers, who unfortunately not too much longer for this world. Chaos Warriors getting slapped, as well as the Bloodletter unit that was over here, but I was able to pull the Cultist out of combat and get him to a position of safety. I want to save that Gate of Khorne and get a good summon of it off, if possible. Some healthy Chaos Warriors here, picking through the remainder of the Ekron's Miners, who have gotten really good value so far. Very well played from my opponent there. However, with all of his attention focused here, trying to drag all of his ranged units around the battlefield and get them into firing positions, the left side of his line has been open for so long, I'm able to use the Fleshhounds and the Furies that cleaned up the Doomseekers, and I jump these weakened Thunderers, taking them out. Seeing Ulthar's Raiders, I just take my Fleshhounds and I just dive right onto those boys. Where my opponent's positioned at, he does have the Thunderers here, and Grim Delvers, who are unfortunately being attacked by the Chaos Warriors now. Really good rune of Wrath and Ruin there, doing a lot of damage. Could be worse, though. Luckily, these guys have pretty good armor, mitigating a lot of that damage. And shutting these missile pieces down while my Fleshhounds are dealing with Ulthar's Raiders, ending up being a hugely favorable trade for me. Absolutely ideal. One cannon back here, routed by the Hounds of the Blood Hunt, who were able to get on them. Unfortunately, Dragonback Slayers come out of the Vanguard point pretty much on top of them, and they can't quite get away. The slowing effect these guys have is very useful, and are able to trap up my unfortunate doggos here. But they have killed most of one cannon crew. They're killing off the remainder of this Thunder unit, and leaving my opponent pretty vulnerable now. I'm using Valkia to get rid of this cannon crew, as well as a few tattered Furies that were over here, really tearing this thing apart really fast. Love seeing that with Fleshhounds chasing down the remainder. Really don't want these cannons getting back online. And with all of the ranged units suddenly being shut down across the board at the same time, I'm getting a massive value lead at this point. This is where I suddenly felt like it was an appropriate and safe time to bring out my Marauder Horsemen, who I did have in reserve. You know, they are always worth having a couple of these guys, even if you don't bring them in the starting army, especially against factions that have access to cannons, like the Dwarves do. They can come in the fourth quarter and do what they're doing right here to these Doomseekers. A super elite unit that really doesn't have the ability to catch these guys, and just getting hammered by the throwing axes coming in here. A bit of a dangerous position here. They are jumping on top of these guys now, but just gonna replace with some Marauders and a fresh unit of Bloodletters. A resummon coming in here, and Bloodletters, excellent unit for your late game summons, as well as early game if you can get them in the right engagements. Late game, they've got the speed to make it onto the battlefield and get in positions to do big work, which they're going to start doing right now. The Dragonback Slayers have dealt with the Fleshhounds back here, but not in a favorable fight in the least, especially with these guys getting buffed up by the Horn of Khorne, with a Cultist and Sloutmere coming down, doing decent damage to them right there. Not the best cast ever, but any little bit helps against an unbreakable unit, where every last bit of HP has to be dealt with at the end of the day. Doomseekers over here fighting to the death with Thorek, who's doing alright. getting okay value, but not really able to do much to help these guys, who are really unable to pay for themselves, unfortunately. Another good Rune of Wrath and Ruin, luckily mitigated by the 25% spell resistance, and a bit of a dodge on my part, mitigating a little bit of that huge AoE there. With everything that's been going on, I have been able to jump out here, and before my opponent can get enough infantry onto the point, I'm able to capture it away from him, giving me the triple cap and quickly racking me up the points I need to put my opponent in a bad enough position that he really is going to struggle to find his way back into this game and also value trade effectively. And you can see here the point differential getting steadily worse. Marauder Horsemen back here jumped out onto this last Thunder unit, getting rid of them, going on to the last few Ulthar's Raiders. We're going to jump on the cannon here, but Miners come out. They do get an attack order onto these horsemen and get dragged into the Furies, who I was using to get rid of this cannon crew, so another good spot for me to be in. And with all of my opponent's Dwarf Warriors standing unsupported on this point, while Dwarf Warriors have always been a good unit for what they do, which is the line holder, their piddly melee attack and weapon strength really prevents them from trading into Bloodletters effectively at all. So, whereas earlier in the match my opponent was able to keep things even by using stuff like Ekron's Miners to get big burst damage and Thunderers to shoot down my squishy infantry, now my guys have complete free reign, and you can see just how well they're paying off here. Already getting up that 800 value again, with the cultists just running around here. One of these Bloodletters here is was the summon. I guess it's dissipated already. I know I used it somewhere in this battle. I think it was to help chip down the Doomseekers that were over here. Off on this flank, some more Doomseekers come out, but now both of the Marauder Horsemen are over here to deal with them, and while this objective is not well defended per se, and the dwarves can kind of just jump on it for free in terms of being able to contest it, the Marauder Horsemen all the while are going to just be tossing their axes in on these dwarves, slowly trickling onto point, which is going to be very nice. I'm just going to fast forward through the rest of this game. It is pretty much over at this point. My opponent is capping his objectives back slowly, but losing them again with the Dwarf Warriors finally routing off. And out here on the flank, the Doomseekers just can't find a home anymore. They've gotten good value over the course of the game so far, but with all of these fast units just denying them their attacks and charge bonus, they're slowly getting worked down. They really only killed a few Marauders this second time around. That's kind of how you want to deal with these guys in the late game, if possible, and in general, ultimately. But sometimes you just gotta go fisticuffs with them and know what kind of units do good work against them, like Furies and Bloodletters, who have been the huge level MVPs, I would say. And that's going to be it for this one, fellas. So just jumping in here, showing off the value. Thorek doing okay, Hammers, alright. Slayers and the Dwarf Warriors, obviously, really not paying for themselves. Unfortunately, just out-traded by more effective infantry. And I was able to shut down my opponent's missile line. That's the ticket to winning as dwarves, is keeping your missiles safe, and I think my opponent was a little overexcited sending these Doomseekers into my backline, essentially. I didn't really have anything that needed to be fought back there. I suppose he was just trying to keep my stuff occupied, like I was talking about earlier, to maybe keep his missile line a little bit safer while I tried to deal with those guys, but eventually they're going to get worked down by something. And Khorne does have, like I said, a lot of good options. The Minotaurs would have been a really good choice, but with the way the battle was working out, I didn't feel the need to summon them in. I thought just going wider and swamping my opponent in infantry was going to be the ticket, which was a good call, because at the end of the day, it's the second go-around of these bloodletters that really put in the work that was needed to get me the win with the dives as well for my skirmishers. Huge value on these Furies. 1,200. They did come in twice, but even at the end there, they had tons of room to work and would have gotten me even more value. So, GG's to my opponent. Love to play him again. We'll see what happens next time. Peace.